Welcome to the Boomer Briefing Podcast, where we help you solve a critical business issue in 20 minutes or less. I'm your host, Jon Hubbard, shareholder and consultant here at Boomer Consulting, and I'm excited today to have Sandra Wiley with us. Hi, Sandra. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Jon. Good to be here.
All right. Sandra, as most of you know, is our president, and she's also a consultant as well. And we have a great topic. One I actually just got to hear her speak on the other day, and that is the Great Resignation. Now, some of you may have heard that before, but Sandra and I get to have a conversation about that today on this episode. So, Sandra, just to start off, what is the Great Resignation? It sounds a little scary.
I think it is a little scary. It's interesting that many of the things that are happening in the world today are causing people to rethink where they're working and what they're doing with their lives. And COVID, for all the things that it has caused, one thing it has caused is for more people to work from home, or to rethink their job and to rethink their life. And so what's happening is it's the pandemic, it's the, am I happy with my job? It's the, oh my gosh, my kids are at home more often. Are my priorities in the right place? It's all of that, and it's converging all together. And there is a great deal of people out there that are saying to themselves, you know what? Am I in the right career? Am I doing the right things? And should I be doing something different? So they are resigning in droves from their positions, whatever they were doing before, not just accounting, but just in all positions. And they're going out and finding something completely different. It's very interesting. They're not just going like public accounting to private accounting, or public accounting to COO somewhere, or CFO. They're going from, I think I'm going to get out of accounting and I'm going to go be a teacher, or I'm going to get out of accounting and I'm going to go back and get a law degree. And it's complete changes of jobs. And so this Great Resignation is, there's a lot of people resigning, which on top of the fact that we couldn't find all the talent we wanted before, is really causing some angst out there for our audience. So
Absolutely. And one of my questions I was going to ask you after the what is the Great Resignation, but you started to answer the second question, which is, why is it important that firms really understand this topic? Can you expand on that a little bit?
absolutely. I think that one of the reasons, obviously the first one is when I started kind of going down that road anyway, which was, we already were having trouble finding people before. Now, on top of that, some of our best people are looking at leaving, even if they kind of like their job. They're just decided they're going to try something new. Now, all of a sudden, that has hit us. And I think that's the biggest reason, right? Is because we don't want the turnover. We need to keep the best people that we have. But I also think we have to tune into it, because I don't believe that it's going to be forever. I think there's going to be some of those people that go, oh, I'm stressed, I'm going to go try something else. I think they're going to come back to us if we play our cards right and if we do the right things now. So I think being aware of it is going to be the first thing that you can do to really kind of start understanding it and get ahead of it. Start thinking about what you can do to not let people leave, or if they leave, get them back as soon as we can.
I love how you're optimistic around this as well. And I think that's something I haven't thought about before, about the boomerang situation of individuals leaving our profession and then coming back in a few years. And I think that's really important to note. I was just speaking with a firm earlier today, and obviously every firm we work with, Sandra, talks a lot about the attraction of talent and how it can be really difficult to attract maybe a certain experience level, just because there's such a demand for that talent out there. And then you pile on top of it the Great Resignation. And you and I have been talking with firms on this the last few months, and there are people leaving the profession that we never would have guessed would have left.
Right.
And so
That's
you're
right.
so there's a little bit of compounding issues here. And I think just me kind of putting that out there to supplement your answer about why firms really need to be tuned into this is because it's happening, and it's happening to some of our best people. So as you've coached firms through this, Sandra, and we are kind of in it right now, and we'll see how long it kind of goes. So you're going to be doing a lot of coaching in this area I'd imagine over the next couple years. What advice are you giving to firms right now to kind of best navigate the Great Resignation?
I think the first thing I would tell firms is that if you want to protect your people and you want to protect your firm, do not make the mistake of believing that the culture that has got you to here is going to be the culture that will get you to the next kind of that next leg up, right? You got to start thinking about how to change your culture to keep the people that you have so that they don't resign. And you've got to change it so that you can attract new people coming in. So I cannot tell you how many firms that you and I have talked to, John, that have said, well, our culture will keep us because everybody loves our culture. And, as soon as we can get back together, we're all going to be back in the office again, and it's going to go back. Stop it. I mean, just stop that. It is not going to be the same. At the very best, right? We're going to have to shift our cultures so that we can keep the best people out there. So the very first thing I would tell people is do not make the mistake to think that you're just going to be able to continue on exactly how you were in 2019, because that's not going to work. The culture that these people are leaving for is different than what you have today. So make yours different. The second thing I tell them, when the very next question that people will ask us, John, is, so what do we have to change? And I will say, then ask your people what they want and be open to listening to that, because most of them are going to want hybrid so that they can work sometimes at home, sometimes in the office. They're all going to want, we talk often about the diamond model, where people are going to be out of that more compliance kind of work and up into work that's really important, in their opinion, important, deep work. They want it faster than they've ever had it before. I know what people are going to say. They're already talking about it while we're sitting here on the video. They're saying, yeah, but they're not ready for that yet. They have to wait a while. No, they don't. We have to train them differently. We have to teach them differently. We have to mentor them differently. But we can teach them to be at a higher level much faster than we ever have before. And that's what they want. So it's a different business model. That's what they want. That's what we can give them. That's what your firm needs to start working on.
So there's so much to unpack there, Sandra.
I know, sorry.
That was really good. That was really good. And there's so much to unpack. A couple things that just kind of stand out to me. And again, this is coming from recent conversations, with firms. One of the first points you made was the culture that got your firm to where it is today may not be the culture that gets you kind of where you want to be into the future. And I think that's extremely relevant. And I think that one of the biggest risks around that, or at least if I were to describe a firm or the type of firm that that's going to be a huge challenge for, it's those firms that have one or two aspects of their culture that they're really hanging on to, that this whole Great Resignation and this whole working remotely and virtually is pushing against. So it's almost like a core identity. I was speaking with a firm the other day that they take pride in being a very large single office firm. And that's been so significant to their history. And they kind of wear it as a badge of honor. Well, what does the next 20 years look like for that firm in this kind of new environment, right? And so, and I've heard you talk about things like that before, where, there are key aspects of your culture that at the top, at the leadership level in firms, it's going to be questioned moving forward. And how can firms really, adjust to that? Are you hearing that out there? And that was just one example, but what would you add to that?
Well, I bet that might be a whole other episode for us, right? To have a whole episode on what are those cultural stigmas that we put into our firm that we say that we have to do this because this is what we've always done. But I love the badge of honor thing. I always talk about the badge of honor, the number of hours that people are working. We were at the talent circle just a few weeks ago, and there's this whole conversation around how many hours do you expect people to work? And, we heard anything from 22 to 2,500 hours. And well, does that include free time or vacation time? And the conversation went on, and all I could think of was, yuck, quit talking about that. We should be talking about productivity. We should be talking about balance. We should be talking about the number of engagements that we're getting done, not the number of hours that we're working. That's a stigma. That's something that we have to unpack from culture, and we have to do things differently. It's a whole new business model. And I think that the firms that are going to really be successful are those that can truly come up with a culture that has this whole new business model encompassed in it, that will take them far into the future, not just over the next 2 or 3 years, but 20 years from now. And they'll be the ones saying, we did it first. I would love to see more firms doing that.
And those are going to be the firms too that win the talent war.
Yes.
And just this morning, I was on with 10 emerging leaders within firms. And when I say emerging leaders, I mean, they have leadership roles within their firms already. Yep. They're not at partner level yet, but they're, I would say linchpins in the organization, right? Yep. And all 10 of them are exhausted right now. Exhausted, right? And so when you talk about the Great Resignation, and then you kind of draw a dotted line to that kind of sweet spot that's really hard to attract in your firm, but those that you do have in your firm that are within that sweet spot are exhausted and burned out. Boom, that's a big red flag.
Right? That should be a huge red flag. And some people will say, well, they're not telling us that they're exhausted. They're not showing that. And I differ from that. They are showing you in everything that they're doing. They're showing you're not listening. And so as leaders in the firm, as partners in the firm, we have to really open ourselves up to listening through body language, through the work that they're doing, through the outcomes that they have. They're telling us, and we better listen and we better respond to it, or we are going to lose more and more people, which, that great talent war, it's just going to get worse. It's just going to get worse.
Yep. So you touched on it at the beginning of this conversation. I want to circle back just a moment, but one question we always like to ask on this podcast is, how is this topic relevant outside of the accounting profession? Sometimes our profession really likes to think we're in a bubble, right? But guess what? We're not, especially with the talent war at play here. So as you think about the Great Resignation, are you seeing this in other professions, or what's going on outside the accounting bubble?
Oh, without a doubt. You can read almost anything out there. Harvard Business Review, Wall Street Journal, the Times, any publication out there is talking about this right now. But talk to some of your friends. So I was telling somebody that I just went to Texas to watch a football game, and I was with a bunch of my friends, and we have a friend that was in one profession his whole life. He was a teacher, and he was a good teacher, and he just quit this year. He said he was just done. He couldn't teach one more day. The COVID and working blended was hard, and they were going to have to do it again this year. And he said, I just couldn't do it. He went back to school and got his certificate as a paraprofessional for a legal profession. And he is now working for a law firm. And I said, okay, that seems like it would be even harder. And he said, no. He said, I go in at a certain time. I come home at a certain time. I know my job. I do it well, but I don't have to deal with all of the mess that is teaching. The teaching profession lost a great teacher. And I liken it to accounting. I don't want to look at my firm leaders and have them say, I lost a great accountant. I lost a great tax person. I lost a great consultant. And they went to work for some other profession that they thought would just have better balance or better hours or whatever it is. I just hate that. And so, no, it's everywhere. It is not just our profession at all.
So as we conclude this conversation, Sandra, for this episode, we've kind of thrown a lot of the audience here, and it's a lot of important things people need to be thinking about. And they're probably seeing aspects of this in their firm. There's probably people listening, nodding their heads like, yep, that's happening in my firm. But if you could kind of give one or two pieces of advice that when they kind of hang up from this podcast and go back into their firm, what's the next step or steps they should take to really start making some inroads here?
The very first thing that I think every firm out there right now should be doing is taking a breath and do a survey with your team. And I would encourage you to have somebody from outside your firm do the survey for you, because you want to get hard, true, factual data And you don't want them to candy coat it thinking, uh-oh, they're asking me this because they're getting ready to let people go, which is a real fear right now. They saw what happened when COVID first happened, when it first hit, and they saw a lot of firms let go of people. And so they're scared. And so they're not going to tell you everything they're thinking, but they might tell somebody outside. So do a stay interview or do a culture interview or survey with your people so you can find out what they're thinking. That's the first thing you should do. And then do something with the data. Do something big with the data. Don't hide it. Be transparent. And ask them not just what their problem areas are, but ask them what the solutions are. If you could do it, if you were in charge, what would you do? And then do something with that. Make some changes. The sooner you do that, the better.
Excellent advice, Sandra. Well, that concludes this episode of the Boomer Briefing Podcast. So as always, thank you so much for being on this episode, Sandra.
Thank you so much, John. I really appreciate it.
And we know you and I could talk more about this topic, probably another 3 hours, but we don't want to do that to our audience because we said 20 minutes or less for each episode. So we are going to stick to that. For those listening, if you like these types of topics, we would ask that you subscribe to the podcast. We release brand new episodes every Tuesday morning, and we always switch up the topics, but it's always related to your firm and organization, especially in areas that we believe are critical to your business success. Thanks so much, and stay tuned for the next episode.
Thanks, everybody.